Hello from a very chilly Johannesburg, where there is absolutely no doubt that winter is here and it's in full swing. So much for us all being excited just a few weeks ago, saying, no, we're not having winter this year. Where I am in Benoni, trust me, winter is here. Nice to have you here. Welcome. It is the Coaching Hour podcast. I'm Paul Rotherham. I'm joined as always by my fellow co hosts, friends, and colleagues in the form of Mary and Mareka. Hello to the ladies.
Hi,
Hi.
Paul.
Nice to have you with us. Today, a slightly different topic. As you know by the title of this podcast, it's called The Coaching Hour, and generally we chat with coaches in various fields within the coaching world. Today, a little bit different, and Mareka is going to tell us why.
Yes, thank you so much, Paul. So today we have our guest, Anne-Marie Sevenster. She's a professional certified coach through the International Coaching Federation, and she has over 20 years experience in the coaching industry. She has also trained and mentored many coaches and has a proven track record of helping business owners to elevate their leadership skills. So today we're going to share insights into coaching, let's say the career of coaching and why it's such a valuable resource when working with clients. So welcome, Anne-Marie. It's lovely to have you today.
Thank you, Mareka and Paul and Mary, for the opportunity. I really do appreciate this.
No, it's a pleasure. So Anne-Marie has actually been in the coaching industry, I'm sure, much longer than myself, and maybe also Mary. I think you've been coaching for about 20 years. And the reason why we invited Anne-Marie to an interview is because she can shed some light in terms of what coaching means. She's been involved with the Coaching Federation as well for quite some time, if I'm not mistaken. So she's got quite a lot of experience, and she also trained coaches herself, which is also great. So Anne-Marie, before we get into the topic, please tell our listeners a bit more in terms of who is Anne-Marie, why and how did you get into this industry?
Thank you, Mareka. So why and how I got into the industry is my husband and I had the privilege to live in the Netherlands for just over 3 years, and I wasn't allowed to work. So I started doing web design back then on Front Page from, I don't even know if you guys know what that is, but I started with that. And then a friend who had done a coach training program contacted me, and she said that she was looking for a guinea pig. So I said to her, well, I know what sports coaching is, but I have no clue what coaching is, like she was explaining it. So I signed up for a 3-month program with her. And even though she was a really brand spanking new coach, I got such great results. And I actually got a business up and running in the 3 weeks. So I spoke to my husband. He's an accountant. So I, of course, had to do a business plan and all sorts of things to convince him that I could do this coach training. I actually came back to South Africa to do my coach training here. That was in November of 2003, and I really just have not looked back since. So my coaching practice has evolved, I think, like most coaches. So initially, I didn't really know what my niche was, and I kind of coached, whatever came my way. And then in 2012, I got the opportunity to join a company in London, and we coached in a whole lot of big multinationals. So they would do leadership development training, and then the coaches would then help the delegates to start implementing this through one-on-one coaching. And through that, I realized that I really had a great love for leadership and for leaders, and because people get promoted based on their technical skills, and they're not so much, taught even how to lead. So they lead based on how they were led. And sometimes people don't have great leaders or have great examples. So that's where that came from. And then in COVID, I actually took it a little bit further and started focusing more on small businesses where it was started off by an entrepreneur, and now they've grown and they have a team, and they suddenly find themselves working in their business and not on their business. So that's the niche that I'm working in at the moment, and it's wonderful. I absolutely love what I do.
Awesome. So Anne-Marie, you've been actually involved since 2003. That's a very long time, and I think most people only recently heard of the term coaching. So to most people, coaching is still very new. although you've been in the industry for such a long time. And still, I get most of my clients, when they see me for the first time, they have never heard of coaching. They don't know what coaching is. What makes coaching different from counseling? And I also get the question often, will my medical aid pay for this? Which the answer is obviously no. But can you perhaps give our listeners an idea of what is coaching and what makes it different from, let's say, going to a counselor or psychology? What makes it so unique?
Okay, so coaching is unique because with every other professional relationship that you can have with someone, so like a consultant or a teacher or a mentor or a counselor or a trauma counselor, in all of those modalities, you have an expert and you have somebody that comes to you who wants the information that you have. In coaching, the client is the expert and the coach is the partner. And as the coach, I believe my clients are whole, creative, resourceful, and they can come up with their own answers. And that's what makes it so unique. So I wanted to Google, and I didn't. I wanted to Google time management programs, because the last time I looked, there was more than 1 million. And the reason for that is I find a way to manage my time, and then I want to share that with the world. But the honest truth is there's no other person on this planet who's going to do time management the same way as I am. So if I share how I do it, the chances are that they're going to be disappointed, because it might not work at all, or it might only work 50%. But if I can coach somebody to come up with their own way of managing their time, then that learning is forever. And it's theirs, and it's their answer.
I sometimes find that, some of my clients, when they come for coaching, they want me to give them the solution. They will literally tell me, okay, so what can you tell me? What must I do next? Which, like you said, that's not how it works. Coaching, you have to do the work.
Yes, you unfortunately have to do the work, because it's I don't have your answers. Nobody has your answers. Only you have your answers. So I have the way to help you come up with those answers and to explore. And of course, it goes a little bit deeper than that, because it's also about the assumptions you make, the belief system that you have, your way of being and doing and showing up, and it's your habits. It's, so it's a whole lot of different things. But the beauty of coaching is that, I had my first coach in 2003, and she was actually quite great. At the end, she gave me feedback, and she gave me what she called my recipe for success. And I still have that to this day, the stuff that I learned there. So I'll share that. One of the things was I have overwhelm when something is too big. And through her coaching, what I came up with is I use mind maps and I use spreadsheets. So the minute I want to start a new project, I sit down with my mind map, and it obviously now is not on paper anymore. You've got a program that you can do that with. And then I use the spreadsheets to actually just break it down. And that's been with me for 20 years, where if somebody had given me something else, I can guarantee you nothing would have happened with that.
Makes sense. So just a quick question. Why is coaching, just for the sake of who's ever watching and listening, why is coaching not covered by medical aid?
So coaching is not viewed as a medical intervention. And I'm talking pure coaching now. I don't want to step on any toes. I know there's a lot of hybrids, and all of that has a place. But from a pure coaching perspective, we work with clients to help them go from where they are right now to where they want to be. So they set a goal. They want to run the Comrades next year, and we work with them to become the person that can run that Comrades. We don't delve into trauma. Well, at least I can't. I'm not qualified to do that. But it's not about, we do learn from the past, but it's not about going back into the past like psychologists and trauma counselors do to help the person go forward. So from that point of view, it's not viewed as a medical intervention at all. And I should also add, if you are a coach and you are not qualified to work with trauma, if trauma should come up in coaching, because it does, then you should have somebody that you can refer them to. because then it needs to be taken care of. Yeah, so that is the reason, for that. It's not it's just not. We see our clients as whole. Sorry, we see our clients as whole, so they're not sick.
Yes, and
I'd
also,
like to
yes,
jump
Paul.
in and just say something here, and this is in no way to undermine anyone who is considered a medical professional, so psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, and so forth. But I would argue that in my short journey, being on the receiving end of coaching, simply in my role as a host on radio with this podcast, I would argue that in many ways, I see more benefits and better outcomes to coaching than I have experienced through these so-called approved medical solutions. And again, there's a place for a surgeon and a doctor, and I'm not wanting to undermine those people in any way. If I have a broken bone after a car accident or a bad fall, I'm not going to sit on a virtual session with a coach. I'm going to go into a hospital and have a medical practitioner attend to me. But I do think, and I think many of us who are involved in this coaching world have heard enough stories to know that it's all upside down. How the world works in many ways when it comes to our health is not necessarily how it should work. So how hospital plans and medical aids pay for things, how we are billed for services rendered, I think very often is all in the pursuit of money and is in the pursuit of intentionally keeping us locked into our own poor health. And that's not coming from a conspiracy theorist or from somebody who's trying to elevate coaching. That's just a guy who has experienced this journey and processed the information that I've received over the years of doing it. I think way too many people are horribly over-medicated and pay massive amounts every month to shove pills down their throat that they don't need. And the medical aids and the whole medical industry is built around that, and built around big pharma, and built around creating fear that, well, the only way you can fix this is to pop a pill. So in defense of the coaching fraternity, I do think it's very sad that we're now talking about what is and isn't covered by medical aid, because I think coaching can be extremely beneficial and very helpful.
Oh, I agree with you. I do. I think it also has a lot to do with the public's mindset. A lot of people buy into the medical world. That's all I'm going to say. So by that I want to say is a lot of people are not coachable because of their mindset. It doesn't necessarily have to do anything with medicine, but the mindset of somebody who wants to coach is somebody who wants to transition from where they are to where they want to be, and they want to grow. And yeah, absolutely, it would be wonderful if they could cover that.
Anna-Marie, when you mentioned earlier about the modalities, you mentioned about time management. It made me think that of how each one can discover themselves through their own questioning of who am I? What is my purpose? Where am I going? And to connect with that divinity in them. That's what makes us so unique, is that divinity in each of us.
Absolutely. And those are wonderful questions to ask. And you are going to go quite a way with doing that. Where a coach comes in with something like that is the coach has what we call clarity of distance. So you are sitting with I don't like the word problem, with the challenge. You are sitting with the challenge, and you can't see the wood for the trees necessarily. Where a good coach can stand aside and can actually see the whole picture. So just to use a tennis coach as an example, the tennis coach doesn't do what we do, but the tennis coach can see that you are holding your tennis racket wrong. And by making a slight tweak, now suddenly the ball doesn't go out the back, it actually stays on the court. And that's similar to what we as coaches can do. And that's why we as coaches need coaches.
Yeah, it's the observation.
Yeah,
observing
exactly.
the behavior and observing the narrative as well. Because what we say to ourselves is what creates our reality.
Yeah. So if we have somebody who challenges our assumptions and our beliefs or belief systems, then change can happen.
Question for you again. I think when we started this journey of doing the Coaching Hour podcast, some of the feedback that I saw and a feeling that I had was that anyone who was frustrated in their corporate space or who needed an opportunity to start a business considered going into coaching. And I don't mean to label Mary in any way when I say this, but it was a little bit like the era of the estate agent. And we all remember that time where if mom was at home, a stay-at-home mom, and dad was working, well, mom could just become an estate agent and earn an extra bit of money on the side. And I had a very strong sense at the beginning of my journey with this podcast that that's how people perceived coaching, that, oh, hubby's at work all day. The kids are now getting out of the house or a bit older. I've got some time. Let me become a coach. What are your thoughts on who the ideal candidates are for becoming a coach? First question. And second question, when we as Joe Soap, the public, engage with a coach, what credibility does that coach have for being in the position that they're in South Africa?
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of the comment that you made, that a lot of people are, kind of looking for a second career, go into coaching, that is unfortunately so. I often see on the Facebook groups that I'm on with other coaches that they want coaching to be more regulated. So the sad thing, or maybe even the good thing, is that that's never going to happen, because the word coach didn't even start with what we do. Coaching came from initially from the theater. So they had a drama coach, and then sports coaching. And all of those people have the right to call themselves a coach, of course. And you even get to tell you how to dress and the colors that, yes. So you get a coach for that. So to get back to your question, a lot of people misunderstand what coaching means, and they think that the life they've lived, the lessons that they've learned, that they can share that. And in coaching, in pure coaching, we don't share anything. So there are a lot of people out there who are coaches and they teach people things. So if you think back to what I said initially, what coaching is and how it's different from that happens. And there's nothing that we can do about that. We can kick up a storm and it's not going to change anything. The best way to find a coach in South Africa or elsewhere, because with COVID, everything has changed. I mean, I can now have a coach in Jamaica. I can have a coach in Australia. There are quite a few international bodies. I'm associated with the International Coaching Federation. There are others, and they have coach training programs that are accredited, which means that those coach training programs adhere to the core competencies of the ICF. I'm not even sure what they're called in the other organizations, but the core competencies really is the best practice of coaching. So like you would have a big best practice of an auditor or a lawyer, that is the best practice. So if I were looking for a coach, I would look at somebody that is accredited through one of these organizations, or if they're not accredited, who has been trained through a company that is accredited by one of these organizations. The accreditation is actually is unfortunately quite pricey for South Africans, and I know there are a lot of great coaches out there who are not accredited simply because of that reason, but they have been trained through reputable companies. And then I would do research. If I was a novice and I didn't know anything about coaching, I would go to a website like the International Coaching Federation and go and read what does it mean to be coached. In the core competencies, for example, it says that the coach doesn't have an agenda. So that means I don't share what I have with you. I help you to come up with your answer. And that's difficult because often when you're working with somebody who's going through something that you've been through, that it's just human nature to want to share that, but we don't, because it takes away from that person's learning. So those are the things that I would really look at. And I know a lot of new coaches get very upset with all these people that call themselves, coaches. You get people who attend a 2-day over weekend training and then they told that they can coach executives. I was actually on a training like that. I was absolutely horrified. My experience is that those people eventually wither away, that it eventually doesn't happen, or they find that they must rather become a consultant in whatever it is that they worked in the corporate world and that they were really good at, because there's space for that. There's absolutely necessity for good consultants. So that would be my answer. Does that answer it for you, Paul?
Yeah, I think it's just working collectively within the community to build trust and credibility, and as you said, an understanding of what coaching is. Because on the surface, as Marika said as well a few minutes ago, many people don't really understand the full context of what it means to be a coach. And I think in my experience, the most common phrase that I have seen is life coach. And if you don't know anything about that field, for many people on the periphery, it seems sort of airy fairy. And as we all know, there's no magic in this. Most of this is really just simple understanding of how the human mind works and our belief systems and how we think. So when you drill down to it, it's not rocket science and there's no hocus pocus magic. But for somebody on the outside, I've often experienced that that's how coaching can appear.
Yeah, I think there's, I often hear when people decide they want to become a coach, then they say, I'm going to be trained to become a business coach, or I'm going to train to become a leadership coach. And actually the core competencies, let me call it that, the core competencies are fixed, that it's one set of core competencies. So in my view, a life coach is going to work with goals around somebody's personal life. So it could be fitness, it could be finances, it could be spirituality, it could be traveling, it could be anything to do with a person's personal life. A business coach can go to the exact same coach training school and learn the skills of coaching, and they are going to be working with business type goals. So turnover or marketing or communication within the business or whatever the case may be. The same for leadership, the same for relationships. So the niche that the coach chooses is not necessarily linked to a specific type of training. The core skills that you need to coach are exactly the same for everybody.
And a final question, because I don't want to hog this conversation, is if somebody is watching this now, or perhaps they've watched other podcasts that we've put together here on the Coaching Hour, and they're thinking, wow, this actually is something that really speaks to me. I would love to become a coach. I'm interested in the field. I love people. What is the starting point in almost figuring out whether you have the ability to be a coach way before you get to the point of joining up and paying for a course? Because as you said, it can be quite expensive to become accredited. And I don't want this conversation to now sound as if you have money, great, there's a very good chance you can become a coach. And if you don't have money, you can't. But some of the ways of getting into this field as somebody who'd like to be a coach?
That's a very difficult question, because it asks for judgment, which is not what I intend to do here. But to be a coach, you must love people. You must love people, and you must want to make a change in their life. And the second thing I would say is that you must be coachable. So I would book even if it's a one session coaching session with an accredited coach or a reputable coach, and see how that sits with you. Because it's like with everything else in life, it's people do what you do. It's not, you can't tell people to do something that you don't do. So if you're not coachable, I would worry about that. And then I think coaching is a skill. It's a skill that you can learn. It's not something that we are born with, or very few people are actually born with that. Maybe to just share something, when I did my first coaching course, I came back to South Africa and I stayed with my parents here in Pretoria, and I am absolutely besotted with animals. And my dad and I went to Menlyn shopping mall, and there was a young lady sitting outside the one door. I assume they wouldn't let her in with the puppy. and this puppy was sort of sitting between her knees. And I asked her, can I stroke him? And she said, yes. And I stroked him. And as we walked through, my dad said, who are you and where has Anne-Marie gone? Because in the past, I would just have gone and stroked the dog. I wouldn't have asked permission. So it changes you as a human being. And I think as long as you love people and you like communicating, I can't really see that you can't be a coach.
So, Paul, you know that for me, I started the coaching to understand people because of, you mentioned earlier about being an agent. So for me to understand people's needs, I went into coaching to help me understand people's needs and to meet them where they're at.
That is really a wonderful example of this, because earlier I said that when you work with a client, you're working with a whole client who's resourceful and all of that. And what in essence you as a coach do, apart from helping them achieve the goal, is you help them become the person who can achieve that goal. And to train as a coach is exactly the same thing. You have to become the person who can be the coach. So one of the trainees that I had on a coach training course, she said to me, this is like learning Italian, because it really is. It's like learning a completely different language. You change the way you ask questions. You change the way that you listen. You change the way that you show up. So that's a wonderful thing. I mean, I even said to my dad, if I never coached a single person, that course was still worth it, because it changed me as a human being, I believe, for the better.
No, definitely. I think if we, we summarize, what we've mentioned today, I think the first thing is to understand that it will never be formalized, because some people can't understand why is it not going through medical aid. That means that all the coaching companies out there has to close their doors, and like you said, you get so many different types of coaches. How can you formalize that? Where for psychology, for example, you go to university, it's a standardized program, 3-year qualification that you go through, and obviously then after certain practical, and then you get registered, and then you can obviously start charging and medical aids can claim. But I think also, to go back to Paul's initial question, I think it's just, lack of maybe understanding that there are different options out there. This is why we do the coaching hour, to make people more aware, to provide education on what other options, exist. But very important to do your research, like you said, because there's so many coaching courses out there. You can, not to take anything away from Udemy, for example, but you can do a fairly cheap coaching course, and for interest sake, I've looked at the content of one of the courses, which is not bad theoretical, but afterwards to apply it's different. There's a very big difference between reading information, theoretical information, watching a video, maybe reading a book, and the application thereof. And at least if you are accredited by some or other organization, there are certain standards that you need to adhere to. There's certain ethical, you need to sign a code of ethics, for example. So that does make a difference. So I think it's just to be educated on what is coaching and what's my options, and not to take away from the field of coaching. It's very valuable, but just do the homework.
Can I just add one thing there? Is if you are, whoever is listening out there, if you are looking at taking on a coach, most coaches offer a complimentary session for a half an hour or 45 minutes or whatever the case may be. And ask 4 or 5 of them and see who you really, really trust, because that's part of being a coach, is you must be able to build trust really quickly. And who resonates with you. Because the more that you can trust the coach, the deeper the coaching will go and the bigger the benefit will be.
Absolutely. Good. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. Any final thoughts that you would like to leave us with?
Yes, I think there's a whole world out there with, I don't know how many billion people, and they all need coaches. I heard something yesterday. There are 239 million registered small and medium businesses worldwide, and over 3 million of them indicated in the last month or so in a survey that they're looking for a coach.
Sure.
So we need coaches. So if this is something that you think you could do or that you could love doing, then pursue it. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. I really, I think it was a very valuable session because we've never really gone into these topics before, and it is something that we need to create more awareness and education on. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Thank you, Mary, Marika, and we look forward to your comments as well. As always, in the description, you'll find the links that you need to find out more about this particular episode. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time in watching and learning, as we always do. We learn as well. And we do look forward to your company in the next edition of the Coaching Hour. Thank you very much. Bye for now.